All right, what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of Just Ballin'. And today is something I probably did not expect to make for you guys. We're going to talk De'Aaron Fox. We're going to talk De'Aaron Fox trades. We're going to talk everything that's going on with them and pretty much just come up with a bunch of different trade ideas that De'Aaron Fox could end up to. So yeah, Shams and a couple other reporters sort of broke the news that on Tuesday, De'Aaron Fox most likely is not going to sign an extension with the Sacramento Kings at the end of the 2026 season when he's a free agent, and he wants out. Or at least he advised the Kings that they should trade him. Now, with all this going on, Kings have been linked to Kyle Kuzma, Cam Johnson, John Collins. So this kind of came out of left field, and now we're kind of going in the complete opposite direction of where we thought the Sacramento Kings were originally going to go at the deadline. I thought just the way they've been playing, post-firing Mike Brown, them at least trying to buy at the deadline, they were going to go all in. They traded a future first-round pick down the line to get DeMar DeRozan, who's obviously not getting any younger. They extended Sabonis on a massive deal a couple years ago, or last offseason, 2 offseasons ago, whatever that was, to pretty much go all in with this team. Took an NBA-ready prospect in Devin Carter rather than a project play, and now De'Aaron Fox maybe wants out. So there was also the report that there's a team he'd like to go to, and that is the San Antonio Spurs. But I also think this doesn't mean he's going to be a Spur. Now, the Spurs would be a great fit. They have the assets to get him, so that also could make a ton of sense. But I also think this could be Donovan Mitchell 2.0 in a way. I think this is a little bit less likely that he is Donovan Mitchell 2.0. But remember, Donovan Mitchell was never going to be supposed to be a Cav. We all thought he was going to be a Knick or a Miami Heat. At the time, maybe a Houston Rockets, something like that. And the Cavs come out of nowhere. They had the assets to do so, but nobody really thought they would go after him. They trade for him. And then when they do that, we're all like, all right, they're not going to be able to extend him. He's going to want to go to maybe home to New York, to Brooklyn, to maybe one of the LA teams. And no, they were able to make back-to-back playoff appearances and extend him in the offseason. So that could happen with De'Aaron Fox. And if you're a team trading for him right now, like a good team, you're going to get 2 playoff runs with him. You're going to get this year, you're going to get next year. That's a year and a half of control. And say it just goes south during the playoffs, so you trade him, you could trade him in the offseason, you could trade him at the deadline next year if you can't get an extension done. So I wouldn't say it's crazy for a team that's not the San Antonio Spurs to go after Fox. So I'm going to pretty much just talk about like a couple teams that I think could be fun trade destinations for De'Aaron Fox. And that's basically what today's episode of the Just Ballin' podcast YouTube channel is going to be here. So let me just kind of reorganize what this is going to look like for you guys. And yeah, we're going to get into this, and I'm excited because we all thought that the biggest name that was going to be moved at the deadline was going to be Jimmy Butler. Now it could be De'Aaron Fox. And these rumors obviously came out before Mike Brown got fired, and they were always kind of looming. And I thought this trade was more so going to happen in the offseason because it's such a big name and such a big moving piece, and that could still 100% happen. There's a very good chance Fox does not get moved at the deadline and then gets moved in the offseason. So let's start off with the San Antonio Spurs, a team that is going to be making a ton of sense for them as they are around 500, a couple games below it. They're outside of a playing tournament spot right now, but they may say, you know what, we get 2 years at the minimum chemistry, a year and a half basically with Wemby and Fox, and we think he's going to re-sign with us. And if all those reports are true, yeah, I think Fox wants to win. He wants to play in a relatively big market. He wants to get paid. I thought there could be some LA connections. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Fox is from New Orleans. I could be wrong. And honestly, like, we'll get into a Pelicans idea later on, but Houston, apparently he's building a house there as well. Yeah, we're going to start off though with this, and we're going to send him to the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the Spurs have a couple good young pieces. Obviously, this is to build Fox and a Wemby duo going forward. So one guy coming back could be Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sohan. I think Sacramento is going to hold a high price tag to De'Aaron Fox. And I think we're going to look at the package, not in an overpay, but it's going to be a little bit more than we think just because he has a year and a half of control, $34 million, 27-year-old point guard in his prime, and he's making $35 million this year and next year. So it's very easy to trade for. And I think Fox in a big market could be really fun. So I think there's 2 scenarios with the Spurs. Like, I don't know how much San Antonio is interested in De'Aaron Fox, and there could be just a straight up Vassell for Fox swap. Now, I'm sure if they work out this trade with them, I don't know if it's going to be here on Fanspo and it is going to, shout out Fanspo, man. They are goated. So that 2031 swap that got traded in the offseason, so Sacramento could end up with DeMar DeRozan. I'm sure Sacramento would be like, we need that pick at the minimum. That's like one of our picks in the future. I think they would probably want a first-round pick in this upcoming draft. They could probably get San Antonio's or Atlanta's. Let's say Atlanta, hypothetically. You can get probably... I mean, Mikal Bridges, went for like 6 first-round picks and no players. You're kind of looking at what Donovan Mitchell went for, and it was Markkanen, Sexton, and 4 first-round picks around that range. So, like, if it's going to be Vassell, like, it might... I don't know if they're going to want to move Sohan. It's probably not going to be Vassell and Castle. I'm sure they would include Keldon Johnson. Like, let's say it was Fox and Herter for Keldon Johnson, Vassell, and you do, 4 first-round picks? That's probably a little bit less than what, like, we could just do 1 Spurs pick. Like, that's probably a little bit less than what Donovan Mitchell went for. Yeah, that would work. So, like, I think San Antonio should do this. Like, you move Devin Vassell for De'Aaron Fox in a heartbeat. You move those Hawks picks because you're basically going from DeJounte Murray in 2022 to De'Aaron Fox in 2025. That is a no-brainer, and that is very good management by them. You can give Sacramento their first-round pick back, which can account for one of the 4 first-round picks that needs to be in this trade that you basically took on for free, basically to take on Harrison Barnes' contract in the offseason. And yeah, you got to maybe eat into Herter's contract this year and next year, but you know what? You don't have to pay Wemby for another year. Fox, you don't have to pay for another year as well. Both those guys would get new extensions at the end of the 2026 season. So I think this is something that could be really interesting. I think if I'm Sacramento, though, I'm not trying to enter into a full rebuild unless, like, there is maybe I don't know. It's tough. Like, maybe if there is a DeMar DeRozan trade out there, I would think about it. I think another person that could be interested, I think Stephon Castle. And if I'm Sacramento, I want Stephon Castle. Now, there would probably have to be, I mean, like, you don't maybe have to take on Kevin Huerter. Like, say it's something like this. Like, this would work. Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, 4 first-round picks for De'Aaron Fox. Sometimes it's going to take something to get something, and I know Spurs fans are going to be like, we don't want to move Castle. Well, you're like, if it's going to cost you Castle for Fox, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. This is maybe one of the better players they could pair up with Wemby that's going to realistically be on the market unless Luka Doncic really wants to sign with them at the end of, the 26 season, 27 season, whenever that year is. Either way, like, somebody better than Fox may not come down the road for a couple years. When you have Wemby under this team contract, like under his rookie contract, now's the time to go all in my opinion. I'm not like all in. Like, I think that's a little aggressive. I think I'm more so like, if there's somebody that comes up like Fox, you have the assets to do so. Wemby's already a top 10 player in the NBA. This is a trade you can make. And I know Spurs fans are probably not going to want to move Castle. I think it's like, in order to keep Castle, like, maybe Jeremy Sohan would be interested. And I think Jeremy Sohan could be a very good connecting piece. And I think he could play next to Domantas Sabonis in that front court over there in Sacramento. And I think it's going to look something like this. Like, I think Keldon Johnson could easily be in this trade. And it could be Keldon Johnson and Vassell for Fox and Herter, and then 4 first-round picks. It could be Keldon Johnson and Sohan, Keldon Johnson and Stephon Castle. I think you could also be interested in, like, maybe a Malachi Branham throw-in, maybe a Julian Champagnie throw-in as well, given under how good of a contract he is. And if Sacramento can do this right, they don't need to enter into a full rebuild, and they could even have a better long-term outlook. Now, it sucks, like, they moved Halliburton. It sucks they're going to have to move Fox. But Sabonis is still really good. Like, Sabonis is still a top 20 player in the NBA, and he's 28 years old, or 29 years old. And I know DeRozan's getting up there in age, but you still have, like, good connecting pieces around those guys. And I think eventually, I know you're not a big free agency market, but you could still be in a good position with, like, the Suns getting older, the Warriors getting older, the Clippers getting older, Lakers getting older. Like, you could still be in a good spot in the Western Conference. So I think the Spurs are obviously going to be a favorite to land De'Aaron Fox, and I think it makes a ton of sense. And as a overall NBA fan, I'd love to see Fox and Wemby, and I wonder what domino effect could happen from that. Could Chris Paul end up getting traded to the OKC Thunder, the Milwaukee Bucks, I don't know, the Houston Rockets, right? Could there be a Chris Paul trade if they end up with Fox, which I don't hate as well. I thought they were going to move Chris Paul at the start of the year, but the way he's playing, like, it's really good to have that veteran in the locker room. And maybe they don't even move Chris Paul if they have Fox, and they just bring back Chris Paul on a 1-year deal at the end of the year. And he is a much better backup point guard if you're trying to win right now than Trey Jones. So I think a lot of signs point to the Spurs having enough assets to get this deal done. They have enough appealing young players. They have plenty of draft capital, because I talked about all the Hawks picks. They have the Charlotte pick that's water protected this year. That may not amount to anything because of the protections, and Charlotte's pretty bad. Chicago's top 10 protected pick. What if that ends up at number 11, and that's like a Lee McNeely or Con Knipple right there? You have still those Hawks picks from the Murray trade. You do own a Boston 2028 first from Derek White. That trade at the 2022 trade deadline. And then you also own, I believe, that Dallas or Minnesota first round pick in 2030 back from the Rob Dillingham trade on the night of the 24th. Or no, that's from a different trade. They own the 2031 pick. And I think the 2030 is from that trade as well. So yeah, you own the 2030 swap, and then you own a 2031 Timberwolves pick with no protections because of the Rob Dillingham trade. And I know the Spurs could use a Rob Dillingham right now, but either way, I think this is a no-brainer for them. And honestly, like, I don't know how much cheaper Fox would be in the offseason. I'd get this deal done right now. You can make the playing tournament, and maybe in a perfect scenario, you end up with a good pick in the lottery, but I'm sure Sacramento's going to ask for that in a trade as well. But hey, you maybe wait till the offseason. Maybe your pick ends up at number 4, and that's a guaranteed Edgecombe, Yakushonis, the Rutgers guys, or Cooper Flagg. Obviously not Cooper Flagg. He's going 1, most likely, but that could maybe allow you to keep 2 future first-round picks down the line because of that pick becoming something good in the lottery. So, yeah, I think the Spurs are a fun team. Of course, we got to talk about the Rockets, who have been kind of told that they're going to, or have been, I think, hinting that they're staying put, and they want to see what this young core of what Jalen Green, more so, I guess, Alperen Şengün and Amen Thompson have been doing as of late. And, man, that Celtics game, I mean, he was already getting a ton of hype, but the narrative change on what Amen Thompson is, I think maybe the hardcore NBA fans or casual fans has shifted, I think, overnight from that Celtics game where he was incredible, game-winning shot, but I've been seeing tweets that I would take him over Chet Holmgren in a top 25 under 25. He's miles better than Brandon Miller, and the Hornets fumbled that. And I'm like, all right, chill out a little bit. I mean, Thompson could be a very good player, but I want to see him become that very good player before we start coming up with those like insane hot takes. But yeah, I mean, Thompson could theoretically be Ben Simmons with a work ethic, and that is a true elite talent one day. So I think if you're Sacramento, I don't know how much they want to move any of these guys when you're talking about Houston. You could be interested about Jalen Green, change of scenery, but that can't get moved until the offseason. I'm like pretty confident on, just because of the poison pill. I'm pretty sure. I'm not exactly positive, but I think Jalen Green can't get moved into the offseason. Even if I'm wrong, he could be like appealing coming back for De'Aaron Fox instead of like a Fred VanVleet, instead of a Dillon Brooks. But Dillon Brooks could also be appealing, but I think Houston would want to keep Dillon Brooks at all costs. I mean, I'm sure Reed Shepherd has lost a little bit of value. I think if it comes down to Tari Eason or Jabari Smith Jr., I would want Jabari Smith Jr. I mean, could you get Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd? I mean, say we do Steven Adams. Say we do Fred VanVleet. Just bear with me. We do Kevin Huerter. Honestly, maybe not Kevin Huerter. Maybe we do Trey Lyles, who's making $8 million. And the Rockets have picks, and they were always going to be talked about getting those Suns picks for Devin Booker. What if they would want to use those Suns picks on De'Aaron Fox? And I think the Suns also need shooting. So De'Aaron Fox, who is not the greatest three-point shooter in the world, like how far back can I look at these stats? Like he's shooting 32 from 3 this year, 36, 32, 29, 32, 29, 30. He's only had 2 career seasons above 35%. And one of those came on 230 attempts as a sophomore. Now, the volume, 583 point attempts last year, 37% from 3, is very good. But I think that is a lot. Like, that is not like the difference maker shooter wise for this team, like somebody like Devin Booker would be. So I think you got to be a little like hesitant on that if Jalen Green is not going to always be an elite shooter, and Amen Thompson's not a shooter, and Şengün's not a shooter as well. I mean, what was wrong with this trade? Let's see. The Kings would have to cut $8 million. Oh, that's easy. You could keep Trey Lyles, and you would do Kevin Huerter. I think attaching Kevin Huerter to De'Aaron Fox may be a must to get out of that money next year, and you're doing something like this. Kevin Huerter and Fox to Houston. Kevin Huerter can still be a good shooter. VanVleet, Shepherd, Whitmore, 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks coming back. Like, I do wonder where the value would change if this was an offseason trade compared to right now, because you're losing out on at least one playoff run with De'Aaron Fox if you do trade him in the offseason for a team like Houston, who could theoretically win a title this year. So I think Houston could be a team, but it's looking like they may make a smaller move. even though I think they should be a Cam Johnson team because they can get to Cam Johnson's money fairly easily with Steven Adams, Jock Wandale, Jeff Green, and then you can throw in a Cam Whitmore first-round pick, and Cam Johnson's under contract for the next 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, you can leverage Cam Johnson's money in a bigger trade. So I think they should do that. They're not a great three-point shooting team for one of the top teams in the Western Conference. Speaking of not great shooting teams, I think the Orlando Magic would be a fun team. And this is where I talked about before how like the Donovan Mitchell thing. What about if it's a surprise team like the Orlando Magic? Now, the Orlando Magic will eventually have to worry about the second apron if they did this trade and they wanted to extend Fox because they're paying Paolo and Franz max money. They're already going to be paying Franz max money next year. And then Paolo will be in 2 years. Jalen Suggs' contract kicks in. So what they can offer basically is De'Aaron Fox going to Orlando, probably Kevin Huerter as well. I think they could be kind of a combined package. I think KCP, Cole Anthony, maybe Jonathan Isaac. Like Wendell Carter Jr. would have been interesting, but he was just signed too late in the year. Isaac's money drops down a little bit. So that's what, $37 million for about $50 million. Well, yeah, I think we're going to have Anthony Black go. And we're going to have Jet Howard go. I think Tristan Da Silva could probably stay. And then say we did the Denver first round pick. Like there's like Anthony Black may be the only appealing young player. You're going to do the Phoenix swap. And then we could say like an Orlando 2031st, something like that. There could be swaps in there. Obviously, this isn't going to be exact. But basically, you're meeting that money. Sacramento, I mean, has to eat into Cole Anthony's contract next year. I believe there's a team option on the final year of that deal. Could be wrong, but you take a chance on Anthony Black and what he could be in the backcourt with Malik Monk or Devin Carter. You take a flyer on Jet Howard. Maybe you ask for Tristan Da Silva instead. I mean, instead of Cole Anthony, I'd much rather try to turn around Wendell Carter Jr.'s value. And I don't think they're moving Goga Badatse, but I would ask for him 100%. And Isaac's money does descend, and I believe it's not fully guaranteed as well. And then you get 3 first-round picks. So all this talent really makes the Kings have a decent amount of depth. And if they believe in Anthony Black, he could be a nice, appealing young piece going forward. Obviously, Jalen Suggs you could also ask for, and that is a win-now player. And Jalen Suggs in Sacramento would be fun. But that is very tough to do right now just because of his contract and how his extension hasn't kicked in next year. Like he's making $35 million next year, but he's only making $6 million this year. So it's kind of like impossible to really get that deal done. I mean, it's not like you could basically just remove Anthony Black and throw in Jalen Suggs. I'm just wondering like with the poison pill, how that's restricted. Yeah. So I guess after you sign the rookie extension, you can't be traded that year. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, either way, like that'd be tough. I don't even think they want to move Suggs. I think they'd want to orchestrate a big 4 of Fox, Suggs, Paolo, and Franz, which I still think has some shooting issues, but it's basically the Cleveland Cavaliers thing. I think you're getting the big name. You're getting somebody that's a veteran to your younger core, kind of like how Mitchell was in a way. I know we drafted the same year as Jared Allen, but I guess more so of a veteran than Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, and like Isaac Okoro, and you hope that you go to playoffs a couple times, maybe experience an ECF or semifinals, and that's more than Fox was able to accomplish in the West. He'd be willing to re-sign where he can make a lot of money at the end of the 2026 season. So I think they'd be an interesting team. Obviously, there's the Miami Heat because of the De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo connection. They both played with each other at the University of Kentucky in that 2017 season. This would have to result in most likely a 3-team trade because I think you're trying to pair up Bam, Ware, it's tough because you want to probably, like, you want to keep Ware. Jovic you'd probably be willing to include. Hero you'd like to keep in this deal as well. So, like, say hypothetically there's a 3rd team involved that would take on Jimmy's money. I mean, this really complicates some things. Like, say we could just send Jimmy to Miami. We would also send Kevin Huerter, so you get off of that money. And then I would probably, like, if Ware's off the table, I'm probably asking for Jovic and Jaquez, and then you can reroute Jimmy somewhere else. This is probably one of the tougher teams to make this pull off, and they'd have to do something in the offseason. This actually works out financially. I don't know if they'd be willing to trade away future first-round picks. I think they can move their 2031 first. So say you did something like that. I mean, that 2031 first could be valuable. You get Jaquez and Jovic, and then you get the remaining pieces you would get from Jimmy Butler. That's in a 3-team trade. So maybe you're getting 2-3 other players back and a first-round pick or 2. This one I think is a little bit less likely. Like the Spurs package appeals to me a lot more. The Rockets, I think, have a better package. The Magic have a better package as well. But I think the Heat will be there because they're always linked to these big names. And the De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo connection from Kentucky, I think, would be cool. Obviously, Bam, Hero, and Fox could be something because they're all around the same timeline as well. And they all like played at Kentucky because Hero played at Kentucky during 2019. And yeah, Fox 27, 28. Bam is what, 27, 28, and here's 25. So I think the Heat could be something, but that maybe would need to happen in the offseason or once we figure out the Jimmy Butler thing, which apparently the Warriors are back in. The Suns want him, but nobody wants Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal doesn't want anybody else. So that seems less and less likely. One, like, not galaxy brain, but like, what if the Kings wanted to keep being competitive? Kyrie Irving for De'Aaron Fox. Fox fits the Luka timeline a little bit more. You save, what, 5 years right there? I'm just saying, like, we'd have to throw in something else here. Like, say we did Lyles, and just because he's younger, you have to throw in, oh my God, they have, like, no first-round picks. I'm just randomly doing this. Like, all right, they're hard caps, so somebody would have to take on, like, Klay Thompson or Najee Marshall. Either way, like, I wonder, Kings can still stay competitive with Kyrie, DeRozan, and Sabonis. Maybe they get better, honestly, like Kyrie. I mean, Monk and Kyrie in the backcourt, kind of iffy, but I don't hate that. You just got to think how many more good years you have of Kyrie. But Kyrie's been all-star level talent here this year. 24 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.9 assists this year. He has been incredible for the Dallas Mavericks with and without Luka Doncic. So I don't know. That's probably not happening. So another team like Denver, could they want to do some type of Jamal Murray? This would have to happen in the offseason, though, because Jamal Murray was recently signed. You would have to probably trade away the 2031 first. And maybe, I don't know, like Julian Strawther, is that a lot? Peyton Watson, you're not moving. Like, maybe De'Ron Holmes, we'll say, because De'Ron Holmes hasn't played yet. This wouldn't work right now because Murray was signed later in the year. But could you want somebody like Jamal Murray, who's still a very good offensive talent and is still fairly young? Like, he was drafted only 1 year before De'Aaron Fox. He's, 27 years old? He's going to be 28 next month. I mean, the Olympics could scare you off. The injury history could scare you off. But hey, you get a future Nuggets pick, you get De'Ron Holmes and Murray. That's something that could still make you competitive because you're not a big free agency destination. And we know Denver wants to make that kind of big marginal jump from either Michael Porter Jr. as a 2 or 3 to like Zach LaVine or Jamal Murray. There you go. I thought the Pelicans, like, it sucks they're 12-34, but they also interest me a ton because what if, like, De'Aaron Fox is from NOLA? I don't know. Like, it's tough because, like, they have DeJounte Murray, and I would say this would have been the team if they didn't trade for DeJounte Murray, but Brandon Ingram, I think the Kings should be all over. That's why I thought if there's, like, 3 to 4 teams involved in this deal, I want Brandon Ingram on my team. Yes, are him and DeRozan a little repetitive? 100%, but he's 8 years younger than DeRozan, and he fits the Sabonis timeline a little bit more, and Brandon Ingram's value is pretty low right now because he's a free agent, and you could pay him what you would eventually have paid Fox, but it gets kind of complicated. Like, what a third team take DeJounte Murray, and then you have assets going back and forth. This is where Jimmy could be involved. Like, would the Miami Heat want DeJounte Murray? I don't know. This was like something a little bit out of left field just because De'Aaron Fox is from the NOLA area. I don't know really how much he grew up there. But yeah, he was born in New Orleans in 1997. So I think the Saints were pretty bad then. But either way, that was super relevant. I think like they were a team because I think the Kings, if they don't want to enter into that rebuild, whatever asset you get from Fox, it would barely cost you, I think, like 20% of that to go call up New Orleans, get Brandon Ingram, and you get like as good of a talent. Is Fox better than Ingram? Maybe slightly. I think I'd rather have Ingram, though, on my team. Yeah, you maybe run into a point guard issue if you don't think Malik Monk is as good as a playmaker, but Sabonis, great offensive hub, and then you hope maybe something comes out of the line of Devin Carter. I'm not treating Keon Ellis, but I really like Sacramento turning into an Ingram team if Fox becomes actually traded. Now, yeah, Ingram, $36 million compared to $54 million or like $48 million. It's a little expensive, but he's in his prime. He's still a great playmaking wing. It's just he gets hurt a little bit. So I think they were a team as well that really caught my eye. I think like the Warriors don't make a lot of sense. The Lakers aren't going to happen with their assets. The Clippers, I think, would be cool, but not going to happen with their assets. I thought about the Timberwolves. Like, say Fox goes to Minnesota, Randall goes to Sacramento. I'm sure they would want McDaniels, but I don't know. Like, say DiVincenzo, I don't know. He's from, like, not from, but he played there before. Say Rob Dillingham and Naw Like something like this, right? Where picks maybe don't have to be involved as much. So what's the, well, Minnesota's a second apron team, right? So like something like this is the base though. De'Aaron Fox for Julius Randle, Rob Dillingham, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Would Minnesota sacrifice a little bit of depth in Rob Dillingham and Nah, but basically go from Randle as the number 2 to Fox as the number 2 with Ant? Maybe you don't think that's the moving piece. Maybe you rather get some type of wing big that could play next to Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid and replace the Randall spot that way. Maybe it's John Collins or somebody like that. But I thought Minnesota could have been a fun destination. I just hate the Rudy Gobert contract and that logjam because I think like McDaniels, Naz Reid, Fox, Anthony Edwards, and whoever else at the 3 could really be a deadly team offensively in the playoffs because Fox and Ant, I think, could complement each other well in a way. Then you're kind of like, I don't think obviously the Pacers, no. Pistons, no. Cavs, no. Celtics, no. Knicks, no. Hawks, no. Bulls, the way they're playing, no. Sixers, no. Because unless Sacramento wants Paul George, but they'd be the biggest idiots of all time. Brooklyn did come out and say they were interested, or at least Ian Begley of SNY reported they would be interested. And that's like, are you trading for De'Aaron Fox to pair him up with Cam Johnson? Because you can easily get to the matching salary. Like Ben Simmons easily gets us there. Like say it's Bojan Bogdanovic. Say it's Cam Thomas. Maybe that's a piece that goes back. And then, I don't know, you could probably throw in Zaire Williams, but the Nets also have so many first-round picks. They have like 15 first they could trade. Like, say you trade the Milwaukee first. Say you trade the Phoenix, Houston, OKC pick in 25, that swap. Say you move 2 of the future Knicks picks in 27 and in 29, as well as your first-round pick in 29. Like, you could offer 5 first-round picks in Cam Thomas. Like, there's some financial things you'd have to figure out first, but would... I don't know. I don't think that's worth it. I think the Nets should stay the course of the rebuild. They're going to be bad right now. It's going to be tough to watch, but then you move going forward. So yeah, like Memphis, no. OKC, no. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense. Phoenix, I'm sure, wants to be in there. They want to be in the sweepstakes for everybody. But I think the most likely teams are San Antonio 1, Miami and Houston 2, Orlando, I think right after those guys, just because like Orlando may be a little bit scared he wouldn't sign an extension. The one dark horse team I do like is somehow New Orleans gets involved, but I don't know what New Orleans' plan is because are they moving Ingram? If I'm Sacramento, I'd be interested in Ingram for sure. Where does DeMar DeRozan go in all of this? Does the team look to add his offensive talent? Or is he scared off because he's owed 20 plus million the next 2 years? He hasn't shown too much in the playoffs in his career as a winner in the playoffs. And his style of play obviously doesn't fit a ton of teams. So I think, yeah, like the Pelicans would be a fun dark horse team, or the Dallas Mavericks, if they're really trying to get a little bit more in line with the Luka timeline. But Kyrie and Luka just went to the finals last year, so I think that would be a little silly. Denver, I think also if they're trying to do the Murray upgrade, Jamal Murray. So yeah, maybe Jamal Murray to De'Aaron Fox or DeJounte Murray to De'Aaron Fox, something like that. So let me know what you guys think about all of this. This was super fun to do. And where do you think De'Aaron Fox is going to go at the deadline or in the offseason? Which trade makes the most sense? Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.